Sunday Night Football, Dallas, Texas, or actually Arlington, Texas. But Eagles at Cowboys, one of the biggest rivalries in the NFL. NFC East potentially on the line. Maybe the number one seed in the NFC on the line. And the Cowboys absolutely whooped the Philadelphia Eagles 33-13. Even though I am not a Cowboys fan and I am not an Eagles fan, I was disappointed about this game personally because, you and I were talking about it all last week on our show. I was super excited about this game because, again, I know how historic and how visceral this rivalry is. You knew the consequences, and ramifications of this game and all of that. And you had Dak Prescott versus Jalen Hurts, both in the MVP discussion. You had A.J. Brown versus C.D. Lamb, two of the best wide receivers in the NFL, I would say. And the game just did not live up to the hype. Dallas just came out and continued their winning ways. We talked about how Dallas is going through this gauntlet, and so far they're 2-0. But it's going to get interesting. We'll get more into this, but now they have to take their show on the road. That's what I'm concerned about, is they play like this at home. They've won, I think, 14 or 15 straight at home now.
15 straight now after that game's in.
Yes, but what I want to know is, can the Cowboys do this on the road? Or do they have to be at home to put on that type of performance? Stephen A. Smith said it better than me. The Cowboys had 4 bye weeks leading up to this game outside of Seattle. By playing Carolina, Washington. I'm trying to remember some of the other opponents they had leading up to this.
The
game.
Giants with Tommy DeVito in his first career start.
Yes, the Giants with Tommy DeVito. So we didn't really get a good gauge of who the Cowboys were after the beatdown they took at the hands of the 49ers. This was going to be that first litmus test for the Cowboys, was going against the Eagles. We knew what the Eagles did to the Cowboys back in Week 9 in Philadelphia. Arguably, Dallas should have won that game, but that's not how the cookie crumbled, as they say. So, go ahead.
I am here to say that I believe the score does not indicate that this game was actually closer than what the final score ended up being. And let me explain to you how.
Yes, please explain.
Yes, the score was 33-13. But Josh, do you realize that my Philadelphia Eagles did not have an offensive touchdown? Yet they were in Dallas territory at the Dallas 30-yard line 5 times.
And they didn't cash in.
They came away from that with 6 points.
That's not going to get it done against the Cowboys.
Why did they only have 6 points? One, because the Dallas Cowboys jumped off sides on the first play that Jalen Hurts got a strip from. They did not call that offside. Could have completely changed the game. That was a momentum killer.
You sound like a Chiefs fan.
Then Brandon Aubrey turns into Justin Tucker and makes not one, but 2 60-yard field goals. Never been done in the history of an NFL game. Then, obviously, Stephon Gilmore strips A.J. Brown to start the second half. Complete momentum killer when the Eagles were going in again to try to make it a ball game. At that point, it was 24-6. You get a touchdown, 24-13. Who knows what could happen at that point? And then the Devontae Smith strip, even at the end of the game. There's 7 minutes left. Hurts makes that throw to Devontae Smith. They could go in, make it, I believe at that point it would be 33-20 or even 30-20. You get the ball back. Who knows what happened? I told you the bugaboo of this Philadelphia Eagles team is the turnovers. Jalen Hurts, I thought, did not play particularly great, though I didn't think he played terrible either. I think he got better as the game went on. Again, I think a lot of it just had to do with the turnovers. And at the end of the day, you mentioned it. This loss to me hurts more for the number 1 seed as it does as opposed to the NFC East, because I still think that we're going to win the division. I think Dallas is going to lose at least one of, if not both of their next 2 games. at Buffalo, and at Miami. I do think we will find a way to beat Seattle in Seattle. We will win our remaining 3 games, twice against the Giants, once against Arizona, and the Philadelphia Eagles will win the NFC East. And we will need San Francisco to lose at least one more game to win the NFC and to get the number 1 seed. So, yes, it hurt. Is it the end of the world? No. I think Philly's problems are fixable. They just need to stop turning the damn ball over.
So let me ask you a question. Do you think that over the past couple weeks, the Eagles have become too much of a finesse style of team and have gotten away from the physical big boy style that we kind of saw from them kind of early in the season? Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I do, but I think part of that also has to do with game flow. You're playing Dallas that has a very good defensive line. You're playing San Francisco that has a very good defensive line. Um, for whatever reason, they have not ran the ball well in the first half. And I don't know if that's game planning. I don't know if it's coaching. I don't know if they want to get A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith more involved. I don't know the reason for that. Again, part of it may be they're running Jalen Hurts and they're just turning the football over. But I think that they will get back to the run. I think they know they have to get back to the run. This team is good enough. Even our defense, like much people want to talk about, our defense got shredded. We gave up 3 field goals in the second half. Did not give up a touchdown. We made adjustments on Dallas, and they worked. We just could not capitalize and get in the end zone. So it was a bad game. It happens. But at the end, this team has way too much talent to not be right there in the NFC. They're still a very good team. Like I keep saying, if you clean those turnovers up, and fumbles are completely, sometimes they're just bad luck. Sometimes it's bounce right in your hands. The old saying, you're either creating a lot of turnovers or you're giving the ball up. And I think the mostly Philly's problems about they're turning the football over way too much.
Okay. The other thing I want to ask you about this is, do you think that this could also be a bit of fatigue? Because think about
absolutely I do. Because, and I've told you this, they went for the gauntlet, right?
Exactly.
Dallas at home, Kansas City on the road, Buffalo at home, San Francisco, Dallas again, at Seattle. So before the year, I had Philadelphia entering the stretch of games with only 1 loss. I had them leading this 6-game stretch that we talk about. Dallas, Kansas City, at Buffalo, San Francisco, Dallas, at Seattle. I had them going 3-3 in that spot. If they beat Seattle this coming Monday, they'll be 4-2, which you consider that a win, and then you can get healthy here on the backside. And like I said, I think there's a good chance Baltimore could beat San Francisco on Christmas night. That's going to be your best shot. San Francisco knows that, but we know the Niners are not perfect. They have not played great all 4 quarters. Seattle had a little bit of a chance in that game, especially in the first half with Drew Lock. So I don't think there's a perfect team in the NFL this year. I think everybody has a flaw, but I think ultimately the championship pedigree, the Philadelphia Eagles team, will come through.
Oh, yeah. I don't think the Eagles are frauds or anything like that. I'm not by no means.
I'm telling you that's all they're gonna hear in the past 2 weeks, because when you go and the big 4 o'clock window, 4:25, you get embarrassed against your arch rival San Francisco. Then you lose that way to Dallas. You're gonna start hearing it from the media about how you're a fraud, you're not great, yada yada yada. What I will remind people is that last year, the eventual Super Bowl winning champion Kansas City Chiefs had one of the worst losses of the year. It was early in the year, but it was to Matt Ryan, Frank Reich, and the Indianapolis Colts. They then later in the season not only lost to Buffalo at home, but they also lost to Cincinnati late in the year in Cincinnati. So you can have these late losses against good teams and not look great. And I know we're going to get to Kansas City here in a second. But remember, championship pedigree, veteran players. And again, this team knows how to figure it out. This team's went for adversity. Remember last year, they lost Jalen Hurts. Gardner Minshew came in for the game at Dallas and versus New Orleans. They lost both of those games. People thought there's no way the Eagles were even going to get the number 1 seed at that point. What did they do? They went on, they beat San Francisco in the NFC Championship game.
And but at the same time, people can come back and say, yeah, but San Francisco did not have their starting quarterback in that game.
And I will come back and say that game was already a blowout when Brock Purdy got hurt. The Eagles were dominating that game. You can say what you want about this year. I completely get it. San Francisco beat us this year. This year is different than last year, and I still think this Eagles team will see San Francisco and probably Dallas again come the postseason.
We shall see. But speaking of Dallas, we have to ask the question now. Has Dak Prescott moved to the front of the MVP line?
Okay, so I want to go first on this one because Josh, for the first time ever on this show, I have to admit you won a debate. And it's because of what happened last night in that Miami Dolphins Tennessee Titans game. Because when you're talking about the MVP conversation at this point, remember last week I argued that basically the Miami Dolphins offense could be pretty similar without Tyreek Hill. They can't move the ball without Tyreek Hill.
Bingo!
I don't get it. I don't understand it. Tua looked like a bad quarterback. Tyreek Hill is definitely in the MVP conversation.
Thank you.
I have three other names that are in the MVP conversation. All three of them are quarterbacks. One of them is Lamar Jackson, who I know he does not have the stats that he did when he won the MVP in 2019, but I keep going back to what would this Baltimore Ravens team look like without Lamar Jackson? And it's why I'm leaning towards Lamar because he accounts for so much of the Ravens offense, so many yards. We watched this Ravens team last year without him. They were a completely different team. They could barely move the ball. I also think, to the question on the screen here, Dak Prescott is having the best year of his career. You got to admit, even Sunday night, there were plays, and I didn't think the officiating was great. I thought we got away with some calls. I thought Dallas got away with some calls. Dak Prescott, especially in the first half, made some seams. The one down the field to the new tight end they got, Ferguson, the one to Cooks, even CeeDee Lamb on the touchdown when it looked like Jordan Davis got held and they pulled that flag up. You know, that was an incredible opening drive that they had. So Dak is definitely on the list. I don't know if he's at the front of the line, though, because as much as I hate to say it, and I've been banging on this guy all year, the front-running leading candidate for MVP, it's not Christian McCaffrey, folks. I'm sorry. It's Brock Purdy. How can you say that Christian McCaffrey is more valuable to the San Francisco 49ers than Brock Purdy when the 49ers have thrown the ball the least amount of times in football and they have the third most passing yards in football? That does not add up. San Francisco's doing something right. They always got guys wide open. You can make an argument Trump Williams is their MVP because they're a completely different offense when Trump Williams is not out there. I can give you that. But at the end of the day, as I always say, if you don't have a quarterback, you're not winning games. And, you know, that's why I do have a hard time giving it sometimes to a non-quarterback because we know the position is such an important position in sports. And right now, I would say it's sort of Purdy in tier one. Then you go Lamar, Dak, and Tyreek Hill sort of all right there, and you make an argument there 2 through 4. But that could all change as we've seen in the NFL now week to week.
So Brock Purdy has the head-to-head advantage over Dak Prescott. But the MVP right now has the star on his helmet, and he wears number 4. It is Dak Prescott. Because think about I don't think the Dallas Cowboys would be anywhere near like the number 1 seed.
No, that's a good point. That's a good point. But I'll say this: was San Francisco anywhere near this dominant, this good with Jimmy Garoppolo? They were good. They weren't this good.
That's fair, but my argument or my counter argument to that would be think about the weapons around Brock Purdy. Debo, Brandon Ayuk, Jawan Jennings, he often gets left out of the conversation. George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey. You know, I would say Brock Purdy is doing this well because of all the weapons around him. That's not to say Brock Purdy is a bad quarterback or anything like that. I understand he's been a very good quarterback, but in my opinion, he's not a great quarterback. I think it's been more of a product around him.
No,
Whereas,
and I agree with you, but I think this year he's been great. Just like I'll be honest, I think Dak Prescott is a very good to decent quarterback. I think this year he's had the best year of his career. He's been great this year, especially in the back half of the season. He's always played well against Philadelphia, and we've said in between there he's had some bad opponents. The real test will be, and we're going to get to this game, Cowboys, Bills, Buffalo, cold weather, outside of a dome, a team he does not know very well, a team that Jalen Hurts played great against. And by the way, if Purdy slips or by chance Dak slips, Jalen Hurts can get back in this race. He's not there right now, but I think Jalen Hurts a couple good games here, back to back weeks, especially if he goes up to Seattle and has a great performance. Don't count him out of this MVP conversation yet. Um, but I do think Dak is a big test. I can see your argument. I think Dak and Purdy are again right there. Lamar Jackson does so much for Baltimore. I cannot keep him out. And Tyreek Hill, I do think to your point, he is definitely more valuable than what I originally thought. The problem is going to be, can you get the man 2,000 yards? Because if he doesn't get 2,000 yards, it's not a historic season, which means he's going to be left off the MVP conversation.
and that's fair. The other wild card name I would put in, if he was still healthy, is Mark Andrews, the tight end for Baltimore, because Lamar is so dependent on him. Or
That, but they are winning games without him. Isaiah Likely has stepped up. I mentioned to you a couple weeks ago before he just sort of disappeared here the last 3 weeks from Cleveland. Our own Myles Garrett was not only Defensive Player of the Year, but at the time when the Browns defense could not put up any points, or their offense, excuse me, Myles Garrett was dominating up front for the first 10 weeks of the season. He has unfortunately disappeared, it feels like, the last month of the season, but that would be the other sort of non quarterback name I would give you. I don't understand the Christian McCaffrey talk. I know we had this conversation earlier in the season. I know he's a really good running back, but I'm sorry. It's hard for me to believe that if you have all the other pieces that San Francisco has and McCaffrey's the one that's missing, I think that Mason or Mitchell or whoever their other backs are, it may be a little bit of a drop off, but it's not going to be, say, a big of a drop off as what you would mention a Mark Andrews, a Tyreek Hill.
right. And no, I get your argument about Mark Andrews. Like, Baltimore is still winning, but you can see there's a difference in their offense without Mark Andrews because, if it was 3rd and 2 or whatever, and the defense breaks through and is going after Lamar, he's going to Mark Andrews. Like, he's going, oh crap, I need to get the ball out. Where's Mark? Oh, there he is. Boom. Get what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.